Posted by you/Angel. Fox 1. I volunteered after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and there was something there that still scares me to this day. Okay, here it goes. I have a medical background and a certification I rarely use, though I keep going back and paying to renew it. Anyhow, I volunteered almost immediately thinking I would help those who have lived through Katrina. That was not the case. There were a few of us who were assigned once the water started to recede, to find houses that had dead bodies in them. If you've ever had to do a body recovery when it has been lying around in the heat and the water for days, sometimes weeks at a time, you know how it smells. It does sort of smell like any other dead carcass, but worse. I can't explain it, maybe somehow, sweeter smelling. Anyway, the key to not vomiting when you smell them is Vicks in under and around the bottom of your nose. It doesn't keep all the smell out, but enough until you can at least tolerate the smell without vomiting. We had to go to each house and go inside in wading boots and look for bodies. Many of them washed out to sea, but some were still in the houses they had lived in before the hurricane. If we found a body, we spray painted a big X on the outside of the house. This other guy and I had been doing it for a while, and we got assigned to each other almost every day. We got along okay, and he didn't vomit at the ones that had been gotten to. We came up to this one old shack. I say shack because it was pretty run down and in what had been a very bad neighborhood. Right away, I got chills down my spine. I knew there was something wrong. Not like find a body kind of wrong, but chilling kind of wrong. New Orleans has certain areas that just give off these vibes, and my understanding is there is a lot of voodoo practiced in certain areas. Anyway, against everything my body was screaming at me, and we went into the house. The first thing I could smell was a body, the second was something almost earthy and mold. I looked at my partner, I will call him Jay. He was white as a sheet. I could tell he was getting that same feeling I had been getting. It was obvious from the weird bones hanging from the ceiling. I would bet money they were cats. That something odd had been going down in the house, as well as strange beads and carvings on the bare wood on the walls. We went into what was a kitchen, and there chained to a beam was an old lady, or what was left of her. She had chained herself by her wrists to the beam, her guts were falling out on the floor. The creepiest thing was her face still looked as though she were alive and staring at us with a wicked smile showing only partial teeth. They were nubs. My skin started crawling as the goosebumps spread over my body and my neck hair stood up. Suddenly, I heard the most unearthly crackling noise I have ever heard in my life, and my flight or fight kicked in. Jay and I noped out of there. We quickly painted the X and ran to the next house. Now I don't know if that old lady had practiced voodoo or whatever, but that scared the ever-living shit out of me. It still gives me nightmares. The people I feel sorry for are the ones who had to take that crazy lady out of there. Jay and I discussed it that night after we went back to the hotels north of there. He had heard the cackling too, but we both said it had to be the wind or something. Posted by UOG Seek. I saw something on my way home from work that scared me half to death. I've posted here before, and I IDK if this story is allowed. BC, it's not a ghostly experience or haunted house, but I have zero explanation for the event. Before I tell you my story, I'm gonna give you some context about my drive home from work, the state I live in and such. This happened about 10 minutes after I left work today, July 4, 2020. I live in Northeast Ohio, and I got a new job about 2 months ago as a process technician at a dairy plant. It pays very good money, considering it's a 35 mile drive one way. After about 20 or 25 miles, I drive through a wooded area. Nothing uncommon for me, as where I live in Ohio. Forests are common, and I pretty much lived in the one behind my grandma's house growing up. I work from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., and the drive home sucks. Whether it's being tired, hungry, or the fog, almost every night, I go the same way every day and night. I was driving my way home. I just left the residential area of my workplace and was going through the forested area. As I said, there's almost fog every night, so I'm on high alert for deer, raccoons, and such critters. It's just like every other drive home so far. I have a podcast on, focusing on the road, thinking of getting either a sausage McMuffin or McGriddle from McDonald's, and sometimes looking off to the side of the road for any eyes reflecting off my headlights. All of a sudden, I see some reflecting eyes. Out of the woods comes a coyote. In my hometown, coyotes aren't too rare. I've seen them in my high school but had never seen one outside of my hometown, so it surprised me. I start slowing down as it crosses the road, until it turns into my car and sits on the road. It sat about 10 feet from my car. There had been no cars I had seen since leaving the residential area, so I was going to go around it, but I thought this was too odd of a thing to happen to just drive away from it. I expected it to just get up and walk away at any given second. This is where I began to get very scared. I honked my horn, and after about 2 or 3 seconds, It smiles at me. I have my brights on, so I can see it perfectly. This coyote had human-shaped teeth. My heart dropped and every hair on my body raised, just as it is now recalling this incident. It lasted about 1 second, before sitting up and running into the woods. I sat there in fear for about 5 seconds, before shoving my foot on the pedal and driving at getaway speed. I didn't stop and get food cause I had, and still have, no appetite. I thought the rest of the ride home about what I saw, once doubting I saw it. But as I said, with my brights on and it as close to my car as it was, I saw it as clear as day. This coyote had human teeth, and there was no doubt about it. I'm very into the paranormal, and that includes cryptids. Is it possible I ran into a skinwalker or some genetically mutated coyote? I am Native American if that counts for anything. It's so weird typing this out, but I'd like someone who knew more about these things to help out if they can. I know one thing though, and that's I'm finding a new way to work. Posted by you/Mr. Feature _1. When I was 18, my mother took me to a fortune teller. 3 out of 7 prophecies of his already came true. Just a little background. I originally come from Ukraine, and I travel a lot all my life. I studied and lived in England from 12 until 21 years old, and now I'm working in Belgium. My mother knew this fortune teller, who was known to diagnose diseases just by holding your hand, as well as predict your future, at least key events. My mother was worried about my future since I had so many opportunities, that she took me to see this guy. I had exams coming up, and it was a good way to both distract myself and learn something new. The guy made a total of 7 predictions. I will first mention the ones that happen and then the rest that is yet to be. Just to let you know, this guy lives in a tiny village, and never traveled outside of it, nor does he have access to the internet. Anyway, here goes. I would get 82% in my exams. He guessed the exact percent. I was doing well in my studies, and I only started studying properly in the last months. He put his hand on my forehead and immediately said I shouldn't worry, as I will get 82%, which is what I need to get into a university I wanted. That came true and I went to university. 2. I have problems with my life. I was a very healthy kid and did a lot of sports semi-professionally. In my school at 18 years old, I was in a football, rowing, and tennis team. I barely drink and eat properly and had a very healthy body composition. After he said I have problems with my liver, we went to a doctor, and guess what? I had an enlarged and hardened liver. Doctors had no idea what caused it, and to make it normal I had to do a special diet for 2 months. After that, it all went back to normal. 3. I would travel to Finland for work at 23 years old, but not before then. I had a business trip to Estonia and Finland last December. And guess what? I traveled to Finland the day before I turned 24. I had no control over booking the tickets or scheduling this business trip. My management sent me on this mission. I have never been to Finland, nor any Nordic countries ever. 4. At 28 I will have 1,000 employees under my management. Hasn't happened yet. I am currently trying to work myself up to become a project manager, but still not sure if this can happen. Right now I manage around 30 employees, so it's a big jump to 1K, but we will see. 5. In my entire life, I will travel to Russia only twice. Hasn't happened yet. Due to the political climate between Ukraine and Russia, I haven't traveled to Russia ever yet. Although I do want to visit badly. 6. I will marry a blonde woman and will have 2 daughters. This hasn't happened yet. It was always a dream of mine to have daughters, not sons. I can't explain why, just always wanted to. I have mostly females in my family, loads of sisters, aunts, and grandmas, so let's see. 7. I will move and live in Finland for most of my life. Might happen soon. This is quite unbelievable. He said that when he concentrated on my future, he saw the word Swami around me a lot. At the time none of us knew what it was. He also said that I would live and probably die in Finland. When I came home and googled what Swami is, it turned out to be a language spoken in Finland. And as for working there, when I had a business trip, I made some connections with other colleagues, who invited me for some potential working position. So I might end up moving there sooner rather than later. So that's that. He predicted a lot of things, like prostate cancer in the early stage for my dad's friend, which saved his life, as well as healing my grandma's depression by one 15 minutes talking session. I don't know if there is anything to this guy, but it's sure not just accidents. Posted by you/Lego. Lux. A friend said goodbye to me in my dream right before I found out he died. A quick backstory: when I was about 12 years old, I met a boy, who was only 2 years younger than me. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with a fatal and incurable disease known as Batten's disease. I knew that he needed a friend, so I stayed by his side as he faced sudden blindness and paralysis. As often as I could, I would go over and help out around the house, read to him, and watch movies. I remember one night I grew very tired and quickly dozed off. My dream started with me walking to his house as usual, and then I suddenly saw him running towards me with a smile on his face. I was stunned in the dream, looking at him with pure confusion. He came up to me and started talking as I stood there frozen. "So this is what you look like. I want you to know that you were my only friend and I don't want you to worry. I'm not in pain anymore." The dream ended with him walking away as I woke up. I lay there processing the dream, and an hour or so later, my mom came into my room, crying as she delivered the news. He passed away. Even though it was very sad, the dream made me feel at peace. Does anyone else have a similar experience?